All right, so Johannesburg. We're talking gold mines, right?
Right.
But apparently it's also home to this massive forest, like a man-made forest.
Yeah.
Some even say it's like the biggest one in the whole world.
Wow.
So we're going deep on, so it's an excerpt today, all about Johannesburg's urban forest.
Cool.
Trying to get to the bottom of, like, where did it come from?
Hmm.
What does it do for the city?
Yeah.
And, what kind of challenges does it face? All that good stuff.
Well, it's really interesting how the history of this forest is like totally tied to the Sides Gold Rush,
Yeah.
back in the late 1800s.
Okay.
And it wasn't just people looking to strike it rich. It was trees, too.
Wait, trees seeking their fortune?
Uh-huh. Well, not literally.
Okay.
But they needed a ton of timber for the mines, right?
Yeah.
Especially strong wood to hold up those deep shafts.
Oh, I see.
And so they started planting a lot of trees. And the excerpt mentions they chose, I get this, eucalyptus trees.
Eucalyptus? Really?
Yeah.
I don't, think of those as being super strong.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But they grow so fast.
Ah, okay.
So it was perfect for getting all the timber they needed for the mines quickly.
Smart. Makes sense.
But it wasn't just about being practical. You got to remember, a lot of the settlers were from Europe.
Right.
And they were used to, landscapes with these big, grand trees.
Yeah.
So planting familiar trees like oaks, especially in places like Parktown, it was a way to kind of recreate that European feel,
Ah, interesting.
add a touch of, grandeur to this new city.
So it was like practicality, but also a little bit of homesickness.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. That kind of shaped the early forest.
Yeah.
But what about, the jacaranda trees?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can't think of Johannesburg without picturing those.
Right. They're iconic.
Yeah.
They add another, layer to this whole story of trees in Johannesburg.
Okay.
They came a bit later, though, in the early 1900s.
Okay.
Their story is like a whole other thing.
We could do a whole nother deep dive on that.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've got eucalyptus for the mines. We've got oaks for a little taste of Europe.
Yeah.
And then the jacarandas just adding that, pop of color.
That's right.
But it wasn't all imported trees, right?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Johannesburg has this real mix of trees, both indigenous and, the alien species.
Cool.
So alongside the ones we've talked about, you'll find white stinkwood,
Okay.
yellowwood, wild olive.
Wow.
It's a pretty unique urban ecosystem.
It's like a giant tree melting pot.
Uh-huh. Yeah, kind of.
So besides the history and all the variety, what does having all these trees actually do for Johannesburg?
That's a great question.
I mean, besides looking pretty, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it brings up this really important point about what urban forests, what they actually do.
Okay. Yeah.
So trees obviously produce oxygen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to find the exact data on how much oxygen Johannesburg's trees are making. But I mean, it's got to be a lot, right?
Right.
And you can't deny their impact on air quality.
It's like having this giant air purifier for the whole city.
Exactly.
What about the temperature?
Oh, yeah.
Johannesburg gets really hot in the summer.
For sure.
Do the trees help with that at all?
They do. So trees release water vapor,
Okay.
and that makes the air more humid.
Mm-hmm.
And that has this natural cooling effect.
Okay.
Plus, they give shade, obviously.
Yeah.
It's relief from the sun.
Makes sense.
It's like nature's air conditioning.
Oh, that's great.
And it's especially important in a city with so many people.
Okay, so we're talking cleaner air, a more comfortable climate,
Yeah.
and we haven't even mentioned that trees absorb carbon dioxide,
Right.
helping fight climate change and all that.
It's true.
That's pretty impressive for just a bunch of trees.
Definitely.
But I'm guessing it's not all, sunshine and roses, right?
Right.
Having this many trees in a city, I'm sure, comes with its own set of problems.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest challenges is water.
Water.
Yeah, trees need a lot of water to grow,
Yeah, that's true.
especially this many trees.
Yeah.
And that's a problem in a place like South Africa, which is already kind of dry.
Right.
So it makes you wonder how sustainable this forest is in the long run,
Yeah.
Especially as the city keeps growing and needs more water.
Exactly.
And then there's the day-to-day work of taking care of this giant forest,
Oh, right.
pruning, dealing with diseases, taking out trees that are dead or dangerous.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a massive job.
It sounds like having a forest in your city is kind of like having a big, needy pet.
Huh? Yeah, maybe.
Got to keep it healthy and make sure it doesn't get into too much trouble.
Right.
Speaking of trouble, what about those invasive species we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah?
The excerpt mentioned that some of those alien trees can be a real problem.
Yeah, that's true.
They can, like, take over, right?
Invasive species can outcompete the native plants and really mess up the balance of the whole ecosystem.
So what does that mean exactly? Disrupting the balance. How do they actually cause problems?
Well, think of it like this. You've got this healthy ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
All these different species all kind of hanging out, depending on each other.
Okay.
But then this invasive species comes along.
Uh-oh.
And it usually doesn't have any natural predators here
Right.
or anything to, like, keep it in check.
Yeah, yeah.
So it spreads like crazy. It
Right.
starts hogging all the resources.
The resources.
Yeah, like sunlight, water, nutrients, all that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then the native plants, they start to die off.
Oh, no.
And that messes up the whole ecosystem,
It's like a chain reaction.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it kind of brings us back to that challenge of managing this huge urban forest.
Right.
Take a lot of careful monitoring, and sometimes, we have to step in and control these invasive species.
So, like, what do you do? Can you, like, get rid of them completely once they're there?
It's tough. Really tough. Once they've really taken hold, it's almost impossible to wipe them out completely.
Wow.
So usually we try to just contain them,
Okay.
limit their spread, try to reduce the damage.
Yeah.
We might, physically remove them or do controlled burns.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes we even bring in, like, insects that feed on the invasive species.
Huh. That's interesting.
It's like a biological weapon,
Yeah.
but it can be effective.
Okay. So it's like a constant battle.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about something a little less intense for a sec.
Sure.
Let's talk money.
Okay.
This urban forest has got to have some economic value, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, aside from the timber they used back in the day.
Right.
So what are we talking about here?
Well, for one thing, property values.
Property values.
Yeah. Studies have shown that houses near green spaces, especially with big mature trees, they tend to be worth more.
Makes sense.
They're just nicer to live near.
Yeah.
They look good, they provide shade, they create a more peaceful atmosphere.
Right, right.
So those early settlers who planted all those oaks for that, like, European vibe,
Yeah.
they might have accidentally given Johannesburg a real estate boost,
That's funny.
but there's more.
Okay, what else?
Tourism.
Tourism. Okay.
So Johannesburg's urban forest,
Yeah.
it makes the city more attractive to tourists.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
People love visiting parks and gardens, walking under those old trees, seeing the jacarandas in bloom.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And all those tourists, they bring in money, support businesses, create jobs.
That's great.
It's like a win-win.
So planting trees can actually have a real impact on the economy.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go back to those challenges for a second.
Okay.
We talked about water, invasive species, all the upkeep.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else? Anything else we need to worry about when it comes to managing this forest?
There is, yeah. Climate change.
Climate change, right?
It's becoming a bigger and bigger problem for cities all over the world, including Johannesburg.
Yeah, of course.
Longer droughts, more extreme heat.
Right.
All that stuff puts stress on trees,
Right.
makes them more vulnerable to diseases and pests.
Oh, I see.
So it's like another layer of complexity on top of everything else.
So climate change is making things even harder.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what can we do about it?
Well, one thing is to plant a wider variety of tree species.
Oh, okay.
So you have trees that can handle different conditions.
Different, like, tolerances?
Exactly. Heat, drought, pests.
Okay, yeah.
It's like diversifying your investments, but for trees.
Uh-huh. I like that. Spread the risk.
Exactly. And another important strategy is to improve the soil.
The soil.
Yeah. Healthy soil holds water and nutrients better,
Makes sense.
which helps the trees survive even when things get tough.
So how do you do that? Improve the soil.
There are a few things: mulching, composting, and trying to reduce soil compaction.
Okay.
All those things help.
So it's not just about the trees themselves, but also what's going on underground.
Right, exactly. The soil is like the foundation for the whole forest.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about the trees themselves, the challenges.
Yeah.
But what about the animals?
Oh, the wildlife.
Yeah, does this man-made forest, like, help the animals that live in Johannesburg?
That's a good question.
Or does it, like, hurt them?
It's complicated, to be honest.
Okay.
It's not a simple answer.
All right.
On the one hand, the trees, they provide a home and food for all sorts of creatures.
Yeah, I can see that.
You'll see birds nesting in the branches, squirrels running around, even hedgehogs looking for bugs in the undergrowth.
So it's a real ecosystem,
Yeah, it is.
not just a bunch of trees.
Exactly. But on the other hand, those alien trees, they can sometimes push out the native plants.
Oh, right.
And that can be bad for the animals that rely on those native
I
plants.
see.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah. So are there any, like, animals that are having a hard time adapting to this human-made forest?
There might be, yeah. For example, some birds might prefer open grasslands.
Okay.
And they might have trouble finding good nesting spots in a dense forest.
Yeah.
And some insects, they might only eat certain native plants.
Right.
So if those plants disappear, the insects disappear too.
Makes sense.
It just shows that even when we try to do something good, like planting trees, it could have unintended consequences.
Yeah, that's true. So what can we do to make sure the urban forest is good for wildlife? All the animals.
Well, one thing is to plant more indigenous trees.
The native trees.
Yeah, exactly. They're adapted to the local environment,
Mm-hmm.
and they provide the best habitat and food for the local wildlife.
That makes sense.
Another thing is to create corridors of natural habitat.
Corridors?
Yeah, like connecting different patches of forest so animals can move between them more easily.
Oh, okay, like little pathways for the animals.
Exactly. It's about creating a more connected ecosystem, not just a random collection of trees.
Right.
It takes planning and careful management to make sure the urban forest works for both people and wildlife.
So Johannesburg might not be, like, officially the largest man-made forest in the world,
Right.
but it's definitely got a unique story.
Yeah, it does.
Gold mining, wanting that European look, the jacarandas. It all kind of came together to create this amazing landscape.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how it all happened.
But taking care of this forest, it comes with the challenges.
For sure.
Water, invasive species, climate change, making sure it's good for the animals.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. You've really painted a great picture of this whole situation.
Thanks. I think it just goes to show how complex the relationship between humans and nature really is.
Yeah,
We have such a big impact on the world around us.
absolutely.
Sometimes in ways we don't even realize.
That's true.
But it's also amazing how nature finds a way to adapt, even in a city like Johannesburg.
It really is. And the story's not over yet, right?
Nope.
We still got to figure out how to manage all these challenges, make sure the forest is healthy and sustainable for the future.
Exactly. It's going to take a lot of work and creative solutions.
Okay, so to everyone listening, next time you're walking under a tree, take a minute to appreciate it.
Yeah.
Whether it's a big old oak, a jacaranda, or even just a regular street tree,
Right.
it's got a story to tell.
It does.
And it connects us all to nature, even in the middle of a busy city.
Beautifully said. And remember, there's always more to learn and explore.
That's right. Keep those questions coming, keep learning, and keep appreciating the amazing world around us.
Makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what would Johannesburg even be like without this forest?
Oh,
Like, could it even work as a city?
that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, those crazy hot days in summer.
Yeah.
No shade from the trees.
Right.
And the air quality, without that massive filter,
Yeah.
I think it'd be a much tougher place to live. It's kind of ironic. Those settlers just wanted that familiar feeling,
Yeah.
like a little bit of Europe.
Right.
But they might have accidentally made something super important for the city.
Totally.
Yeah.
It really shows how important green spaces are for cities.
Mhm.
It's not just about looking pretty anymore.
Right.
It's about making cities healthier, more sustainable,
Of the future.
Exactly.
So if someone asked you, like, what's the most important thing about Johannesburg's urban forest, what would you say?
I think it's about how our actions can have these big, unexpected consequences,
Yeah.
both good and bad.
Okay.
It's like a reminder of the impact we have on nature
Mm.
and how nature, it always finds a way, even in a city.
And the story's still going, right?
Oh, for sure.
We've talked about water, those invasive species, climate change.
Yeah.
Those are all still happening.
Oh, absolutely.
We got to find solutions.
We do.
So to everyone listening, next time you're out and about, you're walking under a tree, just,
Yeah.
take a second.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I like that.
Doesn't matter if it's a giant oak or a jacaranda,
Right.
even just a regular tree on the sidewalk.
Mm.
They all have a story,
They do.
and they connect us to nature even when we're surrounded by concrete and buildings.
I love that.
It's pretty amazing.
It is.
So keep asking those questions, keep learning, and keep appreciating the incredible world around us.